Danielle dropped the pregnancy test on the kitchen counter and asked Marcus how long he'd been sleeping with her sister. The plastic stick struck the quartz with a dry little click, absurdly small against the accusation filling the room. Marcus stood beside the refrigerator with one hand still wrapped around his coffee mug. The ceramic was warm against his palm. Somewhere behind him, the ice maker hummed and released a handful of cubes with a hollow clatter. "What did you just say?" Danielle's face didn't move. The pendant lights above the island cast hard circles across the counter, catching the wet shine in her eyes. Beside her stood Kayla Brooks, Danielle's younger sister, wearing an oversized gray sweatshirt with the sleeves pulled over her fingers. Her breathing came shallow and uneven. She smelled faintly of peppermint gum and the cold night air she had carried through the front door. Danielle pushed the test toward Marcus. "She's pregnant." Marcus looked at Kayla. Kayla looked at the floor. "Okay," he said slowly. "And what does that have to do with me?" Danielle gave a short laugh that contained no humor. "Tell him." Kayla's fingers tightened inside her sleeves. "Danielle, tell him." Kayla finally raised her eyes. They met Marcus's for less than a second before sliding away. "The baby is yours." Silence. Not movie silence. Real silence. The refrigerator motor, the faint ticking of the wall clock, tires hissing over damp pavement outside. Marcus set his mug down carefully. Coffee trembled against the rim. "No," Danielle folded her arms. "That's your answer?" "That's not an answer. It's a fact." He stepped toward Kayla. She immediately moved behind her sister. Marcus stopped. "Kayla, look at me and say that again. Don't intimidate her." Danielle planted herself between them. Marcus stared at the woman he had been married to for 10 years. The gold band on her left hand flashed beneath the kitchen lights as she pointed toward the hallway. "I want you out." His eyebrows drew together. "Danielle, you're accusing me of getting your sister pregnant, and you won't even ask me if it happened? Would you admit it?" "There's nothing to admit. She told me. Everything. Then she lied." Kayla made a broken sound behind her. Danielle's jaw tightened. "Get out of my house." Marcus looked around the kitchen, the walnut cabinets they had chosen together, the crooked magnet from their anniversary trip to Chicago, Danielle's half-finished glass of water beside the sink. 10 years of marriage reduced to objects watching him become a stranger. "Our house," he said quietly. 20 minutes later, his black suitcase sat on the front porch. Danielle had packed it herself. The zipper strained around shirts shoved inside without folding. Cold air slipped beneath Marcus's collar as he stood under the porch light, keys in his hand. Danielle remained behind the threshold. Kayla was a blurred shape deeper inside the house. "You'll understand when you calm down," Marcus said. "I understand enough." Danielle reached for the door. Marcus caught one final glimpse of her wedding ring, then asked for a DNA test. Her hand stopped. Kayla's silhouette went perfectly still behind her. Marcus saw it, just for a second, but he saw it. "If that child is mine," he said, his voice low and steady, "a test will prove it." Danielle said nothing. "And if it isn't?" The porch light buzzed above them. From inside the house came the sharp sound of Kayla dropping something onto the hardwood floor. Danielle glanced over her shoulder. Marcus watched that glance linger half a beat too long. Then the door closed between them. He stood beside the suitcase while the deadbolt turned from the other side, but the sound he carried to his car wasn't the lock. It was the sudden silence that had followed 3 words: a DNA test. Marcus found the date by accident, printed in black ink beneath a photograph Danielle had sent him 3 months earlier. He was sitting at the narrow desk in his hotel room after work, his laptop throwing blue light across an untouched turkey sandwich while the air conditioner rattled against the wall. The room smelled of stale coffee and industrial detergent. He had opened their old message thread because Danielle had finally texted him something more specific than an accusation. "Kayla says it happened the week you came over to fix her kitchen sink." Marcus read the sentence twice. Then he stopped chewing. He remembered that sink. Kayla had called him about a leaking faucet in early May, and Marcus had replaced a cracked supply line one Saturday afternoon while Danielle shopped with her mother. But Kayla's pregnancy was supposedly farther along than that. Marcus set the sandwich down and opened the calendar on his work laptop. Riverside schedules filled the screen in colored blocks. He moved backward through April until a familiar project name appeared: North Point Distribution Center, Denver. His hand froze on the mouse. 5 days, Monday through Friday. He opened his company email and searched the project number. Flight confirmation. Hotel invoice. Daily site report signed electronically at 6:42 a.m. for 18 p.m., 5:03 p.m. His pulse became visible in the tendon beside his wrist. Then he found Danielle's photograph. She had sent it Wednesday night that week. Their empty side of the bed with Marcus's pillow untouched. Come home already. Beneath it was his reply from Denver. 2 more days. Marcus stared at those words while the air conditioner kicked off and left the room unnaturally quiet. If Kayla's timeline was what Danielle believed, Marcus had been nearly 900 miles away. He didn't celebrate. He printed everything. The hotel printer coughed each sheet onto warm plastic, filling the room with the sharp smell of toner. Flight itinerary. Expense report. Site badge record. A photograph from the Denver job showing Marcus beside a concrete pour timestamped Thursday morning. He stacked the pages, clipped them together, and drove to the house. Evening had settled over the neighborhood by the time Danielle opened the door. Warm light spilled across the porch, and the smell of garlic and roasted chicken drifted from inside. Marcus could hear silverware touch a plate somewhere behind her. I told you I need space. And I'm giving you facts. He held out the packet. Danielle didn't take it. What is that? The week Kayla says I got her pregnant. Danielle's eyes dropped to the papers. You've been building some kind of defense. I've been checking whether the accusation is physically possible. Her mouth tightened. Marcus opened the packet himself. Flight out Monday. Hotel in Denver through Friday. Badge scans at the North Point site. Corporate card charges. Your own text to me while I was there. He held up the photograph she had sent. Danielle's gaze caught on it. For a moment, the kitchen behind her seemed louder, the refrigerator humming, a fork scraping ceramic, Kayla shifting somewhere out of sight. Kayla could have the week wrong, Danielle said. Marcus lowered the page. Then ask her which week is right. Pregnancy dates aren't exact. I know. That's why I'm asking for DNA, not arithmetic. Danielle looked past him toward the street. You always know how to make everything sound reasonable. Marcus went still. Reasonable. He slid the papers back into the clip. I have timestamps, travel records, and your messages. She has an accusation. And somehow my evidence is the suspicious part. Kayla appeared at the end of the hallway. Bare feet against hardwood. Gray sweatshirt again, one hand wrapped around the opposite elbow. Marcus did not step toward her. Kayla, he said. Danielle turned sharply. Don't. One question. Kayla's eyes stayed on the packet. Which week? Marcus asked. You told Danielle I'm the father. Which week did it happen? Kayla swallowed. The wall clock clicked once. Twice. I don't remember the exact date. Marcus nodded slowly. Then we stop arguing about dates. He placed the packet on the entry table. We test. Danielle stared at him. Marcus pulled a folded document from his coat pocket and set it on top of the evidence. Information from an accredited paternity laboratory offering a non-invasive prenatal test. I've already called them. They can schedule us this week. Kayla's face drained beneath the warm hallway light. Danielle finally looked at her sister instead of Marcus. Marcus saw the movement and stepped back from the doorway. I'm not asking you to choose between us anymore, he said. I'm asking both of you to choose whether you want the truth. He walked down the porch steps without waiting for an answer. Behind him, the door stayed open, and for the first time since the accusation began, Danielle did not close it. At 8:13 the next morning, Danielle sent Marcus 3 words. Kayla said yes. Marcus read them beneath the white glare of his office lights while a concrete saw screamed somewhere beyond the windows and fresh coffee cooled beside a stack of Riverside blueprints. He did not call Danielle. He did not ask what had changed. He opened the Paternity Lab's website, called the number he had saved, and booked the earliest appointment they offered, Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Then he forwarded the confirmation to his wife. Danielle replied almost immediately. I'll bring her. Thursday arrived with Marcus sitting alone in the clinic lobby beneath fluorescent panels that made everything look too clean. The air smelled of disinfectant and lemon floor polish. A television mounted in the corner played a morning talk show with the volume muted, captions crawling beneath smiling faces. Marcus rubbed his thumb across the rough edge of his construction ID badge, still clipped to his belt because he had come directly from a job site meeting. At 10:26, Danielle walked through the glass doors. Kayla followed several feet behind her. Danielle wore the navy coat Marcus had bought her 2 Christmases earlier. She didn't sit beside him. Kayla chose a chair across the room and immediately began bouncing one knee. Marcus Bennett, A nurse opened the inner door. Marcus stood. So did Danielle. Kayla remained seated. Miss Brooks? The nurse asked. Kayla stared at the gray carpet. I need a minute. Danielle leaned toward her. You agreed to this. I know. Then come on. Kayla rubbed both palms over her jeans. Marcus said nothing. The nurse waited with a clipboard pressed against her chest while the ventilation system whispered overhead. Finally, Kayla stood. Inside the consultation room, the nurse explained the procedure in a calm, practiced voice. Kayla's blood would be drawn. Marcus would provide a cheek swab. Their identities would be verified, samples documented, and the laboratory would compare fetal DNA present in Kayla's blood with Marcus's genetic profile. Danielle listened with her purse locked between both hands. How accurate is it? She asked. The nurse answered, then pointed to the consent forms. Kayla picked up the pen. She didn't sign. Can we do this later? Danielle turned toward her. Why? I'm nauseous. They said the blood draw is safe. That's not what I mean. Kayla put the pen down. Its plastic barrel tapped against the clipboard. Marcus watched Danielle's face shift toward her sister. You told me you wanted him to stop calling you a liar, Danielle said quietly. Kayla's eyes flicked toward Marcus. I do. Then sign. Marcus pushed his chair back. The rubber feet dragged softly across the tile. No, Danielle looked at him. What? Don't pressure her for me. He stood and reached for his coat. Marcus, sit down. If she believes I'm the father, this test ends the argument. If she doesn't want the test, that tells me something too. Kayla's chin lifted. You think this proves you're innocent? No, Marcus looked directly at her. The result will. He walked out before either woman answered. By noon, he was back at work, standing inside the unfinished lobby of Riverside Tower while nail guns snapped through the open floors and cold air carried the dusty smell of cut drywall. His phone rang inside his jacket. Danielle. He let it ring twice before answering. She signed, Danielle said. Marcus stepped away from the crew. And gave the sample? Yes. Behind Danielle's voice came the faint slam of a car door. The lab said they have everything they need from her. They still need your swab. Marcus looked through the skeletal steel framing toward the city beyond it. I'll go back now. Danielle was silent for several seconds. Marcus. What? If the result says you're not the father, her sentence stopped there. Marcus waited. A compressor kicked on behind him with a deep mechanical growl. Then what? He asked. Danielle's breathing reached him through the phone. Then I threw my husband out of his own house for something he didn't do. Marcus closed his eyes for one beat. The test isn't going to repair what happened, Danielle. He opened them again. It's only going to tell us who was telling the truth. He ended the call, handed his site supervisor the rolled blueprints in his arm, and headed for the elevator. 30 minutes later, Marcus was back beneath the clinic's fluorescent lights, scraping a sterile swab along the inside of his cheek. When the nurse sealed it into an evidence envelope, Marcus watched her write his name across the label. There was nothing left for him to explain now. No argument to win. No memory Danielle had to trust. His DNA was inside that envelope, and for the first time since his suitcase landed on the porch, the accusation had a deadline. Danielle was waiting outside Marcus's hotel when he returned from work Monday evening, her wedding ring turning slowly around her finger. The parking lot lamps washed her navy coat in dull orange, and cold air carried the smell of gasoline from the highway beyond the building. Marcus stopped beside his truck. He could hear traffic rushing over wet asphalt and the metallic ticking of his engine as it cooled. How did you know where I was staying? He asked. Your credit card statement. Danielle glanced toward the hotel entrance. Can we talk somewhere that doesn't smell like exhaust? 10 minutes later, they sat across from each other in a nearly empty diner. Fluorescent tubes buzzed overhead. Coffee steamed between them, bitter and dark, while plates clattered behind the stainless steel service window. Danielle kept both hands around her mug without drinking. Kayla changed the date again. Marcus didn't move. What date? She says she might have been wrong about Denver week. Might have been. Danielle's thumbnail scraped the paper sleeve around her cup. Now she thinks it happened earlier. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Where? At her apartment. When? She doesn't know exactly. Marcus leaned back against the cracked vinyl booth. Yesterday you believed her enough to keep me out of my house. Danielle's eyes lifted. I'm telling you because I noticed it too. Noticed what? Every time I ask for something specific, the story moves. Marcus reached into his jacket, but stopped before touching his phone. He wasn't going to produce another stack of records. Not tonight. Then stop asking me to disprove a story she can rewrite whenever evidence appears. Danielle's grip tightened around the mug. She's my sister. And I'm your husband. The waitress passed with a pot of coffee, leaving behind the warm smell of roasted beans. Neither of them looked up. Danielle lowered her voice. She said you told her nobody would believe her over you. Marcus's jaw shifted once. Did I? I don't know anymore. That's the first honest thing you've said to me since Thursday. Danielle flinched, but Marcus continued. You don't have to trust me tonight. The lab will settle the only question that matters. What if the test comes back positive? Then I live with what it proves. Marcus leaned forward, forearms against the cool tabletop. Will you do the same if it comes back negative? Danielle stared into her coffee. Outside the window, headlights slid across the glass and disappeared. I changed the locks, she said after several seconds. I called my mother. I told Eric's wife. My parents told people. Marcus said nothing. I made it public before there was proof. Yes. The word was quiet. Danielle swallowed. And if Kayla lied, then you'll have another problem. What problem? Marcus looked at the ring she kept twisting. Why your sister needed me to be the father badly enough to destroy our marriage. Danielle's hand stopped. Marcus stood, placed $20 beneath the untouched coffee cup, and walked toward the door. Wait. Danielle followed him into the parking lot. The cold hit immediately, carrying the hiss of tires and the smell of rain. There's something else. Marcus turned. Danielle held her phone against her chest. When I asked Kayla this afternoon to tell me exactly when it happened, she said she couldn't talk because she was sick. Marcus waited. Then she left the house. Where did she go? I don't know. She wouldn't tell me. Marcus looked toward the highway, then back at Danielle. Don't follow her. Danielle blinked. Why not? Because this isn't about catching her doing something. It's about whether she told the truth about me. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. No more detective work. No more family arguments. No more changing dates. We wait for the DNA result. Danielle's phone buzzed in her hand. She looked down. Kayla. A message filled the screen. Danielle read it once, then again. Marcus watched the color leave her face. What did she say? Danielle turned the phone toward him. I need you to stop asking me about dates. I already told you what happened. Marcus read it without touching the phone. Then another message appeared beneath it. And if Marcus keeps pushing this test, I'm leaving. Danielle stared at those words as rain began tapping against the hood of Marcus's truck. For days, she had been the one deciding whether Marcus belonged inside their marriage. Now Kayla had drawn a line of her own. Danielle slowly locked her phone and looked at her husband. I'm not stopping the test. The lab called Danielle before it called Marcus, and by the time she reached his office, she was carrying a sealed envelope she refused to open. Marcus saw her through the glass wall at 4:40 Tuesday afternoon, standing between rolled blueprints and a rack of hard hats, while drills hammered somewhere 2 floors below. Fine construction dust floated through the white work lights, and cold air slipped through the unfinished elevator shaft with the smell of concrete and cut lumber. He put down his pencil. What happened? Danielle stepped inside and closed the door. The envelope shook once between her fingers before she flattened it against his desk. The lab called. Marcus looked at the logo printed in the upper corner. They told us results would take longer. These aren't the results. Danielle remained standing. There was a problem with Kayla's paperwork. They needed her obstetric records to confirm gestational information before releasing anything. Marcus waited. Danielle pulled out her phone. Kayla told me not to send them. Why? First she said it was private. Then she said the clinic had the dates wrong. Marcus's gaze stayed on Danielle rather than the envelope. And what did you do? Danielle unlocked her phone and placed it beside his hand. An email confirmation filled the screen. Records authorization received. I drove Kayla to her OB's office, she said. I sat beside her until she signed the release. The office suddenly seemed smaller. Marcus picked up the phone. She agreed. After 40 minutes. Danielle's voice thinned on the last word. And after she told me something she should have told me the night I threw you out. Marcus set the phone down. Outside, a forklift beeped in reverse. What? Danielle looked toward the glass wall as 2 employees passed, then lowered her voice. Kayla admitted she was seeing someone around the time she got pregnant. Marcus did not speak. She says it doesn't matter because she's still certain you're the father. Danielle pressed her fingertips against the desk. But when I asked who he was, she wouldn't give me a name. Did she say why? She said he couldn't be involved. Marcus's expression hardened. Couldn't or wouldn't? Danielle's eyes met his. I asked the same thing. She pulled out the chair and sat for the first time. She started crying. Then she said if his name came out, she could lose everything. Marcus slowly leaned back. The chair leather gave a low creak beneath him. Everything means what? She wouldn't explain. Then don't chase it. Danielle stared at him. Marcus, she accused you. Exactly. He tapped the sealed envelope once. The question we need answered is whether I'm the father. Whatever mess she has with another man comes after that. Danielle rubbed at the pale indentation beneath her wedding ring. How are you this calm? Marcus looked through the glass toward the unfinished building beyond his office. Because being angry won't change what's in my blood. Danielle's mouth opened, then closed. Her phone rang. Kayla. Danielle answered on speaker. Where are you? Kayla's voice came through thin and breathless. Home. Danielle, you had no right to send those records. You signed the authorization. Because you wouldn't stop. Because you accused my husband of getting you pregnant. Silence followed. Marcus's eyes stayed on the phone. Danielle continued. Who else could be the father? I told you it's Marcus. Then why are you afraid of the test? I'm not. Then tell me his name. Another silence. This one lasted longer. When Kayla finally spoke, her voice had dropped almost to a whisper. Because if you know who he is, you'll understand why I couldn't tell the truth. Danielle's fingers went rigid around the edge of the desk. Marcus stood. Kayla, he said. A sharp breath came through the speaker. Marcus is there? Yes, Danielle said. Good, Marcus replied. He moved the phone closer. Then say it once with both of us listening. Did you accuse me because you knew the real father was someone else? Nothing came back except Kayla's breathing and the faint hum of the connection. Then she whispered, I didn't have a choice. Danielle shut her eyes. Marcus did not. You had one, he said. You chose me. Kayla began to speak, but Marcus ended the call. He slid Danielle's phone back across the desk. No more private versions. No more changing stories. Danielle looked at him across the construction plants. Marcus pointed to the lab envelope between them. When the DNA result arrives, we open it together. You, me, and Kayla. Whatever that page says, nobody walks away from the truth this time. The lab gave them 48 hours, and Danielle spent the first 6 reopening every accusation she had once accepted without question. Marcus returned to the house Wednesday evening because she had asked him to come, but this time his suitcase stayed in the truck. Warm kitchen lights stretched across the hardwood floor, the dishwasher murmured behind the island, and the sharp scent of untouched tomato soup hung above the stove. Danielle had covered the dining table with papers. Marcus's Denver itinerary, Kayla's appointment records, the laboratory receipt, and the photograph Danielle had once texted him from their empty bed. Kayla sat at the far end with both arms folded. Marcus remained standing. The lab said Friday morning, Danielle said. By 10. Kayla's chair scraped backward. You brought him here for this. Danielle didn't look at her. I brought my husband here because you accused him, and I helped punish him before either of us had proof. Marcus's eyes shifted toward Danielle. It was the first time she had said those words with Kayla in the room. Kayla stood. I already told you what happened. No, Danielle picked up one of the papers. You told me it happened during the Denver week. Then you said earlier. Then you said you couldn't remember. Pregnancy dates aren't exact. Neither is your story. Kayla's mouth tightened. The refrigerator compressor clicked off, leaving only the faint hiss of the burner beneath the soup. Marcus stepped forward and turned the burner off. This isn't another interrogation. His voice stayed level. The test is already running. Kayla looked at him. You think you've won. There shouldn't be anything to win. Marcus pulled out a chair, but didn't sit. Either I'm the father or I'm not. Danielle pushed the papers aside. Kayla, yesterday you said you couldn't tell the truth because of who the other man was. Kayla's eyes flashed toward her. I shouldn't have said that. But you did. Forget it. Danielle reached into her pocket and placed her phone on the table. I called Mom this afternoon. Kayla went still. Why? Because I corrected what I told her about Marcus. Marcus's gaze moved sharply to his wife. Danielle continued before either of them could interrupt. I told her there is no proof Marcus touched you. I told her the DNA test is pending. And I told her nobody in this family repeats the accusation as fact again until that result comes back. Kayla stared at her sister. You're taking his side. Danielle's hand flattened against the table. No, I finally stopped pretending there should be sides before there are facts. Something changed in the room then. Marcus felt it without needing to name it. A week earlier, Danielle had stood between him and Kayla like a wall. Now she had moved to the center, and the wall had cracked. Kayla grabbed her purse from the chair. I'm leaving. You can leave the house, Danielle said. You cannot leave what you said behind. Kayla stopped at the hallway. What does that mean? Danielle turned toward her. The overhead light caught the small gold ring still on her finger. Friday morning, when the result arrives, you're coming back here. And if I don't, then Marcus and I open it without you. And I send the result to every person I told he was responsible. Kayla's face tightened. You'd humiliate me? Danielle looked toward Marcus's black suitcase visible through the front window on the passenger seat of his truck. I already humiliated someone without proof. Kayla opened the front door. Cold air rolled through the entryway, carrying the damp smell of pavement. You have no idea what you're doing. Then tell me. Danielle waited. Kayla's fingers stayed wrapped around the doorknob. Who is the other man? For several seconds, Kayla said nothing. Then her shoulders lowered. Someone married. Marcus remained motionless. Danielle's voice became quieter. Someone I know? Kayla looked directly at her sister for the first time. Yes. Danielle's hand slipped from the table. Kayla stepped outside before another question could come. The door shut, leaving the three-place settings under the warm kitchen light with only two people beside them. Marcus reached for his coat. Where are you going? Danielle asked. Back to the hotel. Marcus. He stopped. Danielle swallowed and looked toward the locked front door she had once closed on him. Friday, 10 o'clock. Marcus nodded. Danielle picked up the laboratory receipt and held it between both hands. Whatever that DNA test says, I'm going to say the truth just as publicly as I said the accusation. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, then walked outside. Behind him, Danielle remained at the table surrounded by the evidence she had once refused to see. With less than 48 hours left before one laboratory result decided which of the two people she loved had lied to her. At 9:58 Friday morning, Danielle's laptop chimed once, and every person at the kitchen table stopped moving. Marcus sat opposite her beneath the pendant lights, his untouched coffee cooling beside the same quartz counter where the pregnancy test had landed days earlier. The room smelled of dark roast and lemon cleaner. Outside, a delivery truck groaned down the street, but inside the house, even the refrigerator seemed too loud. Kayla sat near the hallway with her coat still zipped, one hand gripping her phone beneath the table. Danielle stared at the notification glowing across her screen. Paternity test results available. Marcus looked at the clock. 9:59. Open it, Kayla whispered. Danielle's fingers hovered over the trackpad. Before I do, I want one thing clear. She turned the laptop slightly so all three could see it. Nobody leaves this room because they don't like what it says. Kayla's jaw tightened. Marcus said nothing. Danielle clicked. A login page appeared. Password. Verification code. Each small delay seemed amplified. The tapping of keys, the buzz of Kayla's phone, the faint whistle of air through the heating vent. Then the report loaded. Danielle scrolled past names and specimen information until Marcus saw his own, Marcus Bennett. His eyes moved lower. The laboratory language was clinical, almost brutally ordinary. Genetic markers. Probability. Conclusion. Danielle stopped scrolling. Her hand lifted from the trackpad. Read it, Marcus said. She didn't. Kayla pushed back from the table. Danielle, sit down. Danielle's voice cracked through the kitchen harder than Marcus had ever heard it. Kayla froze. Danielle leaned toward the screen. Her lips moved silently across the sentence once, then again. Marcus reached over and rotated the laptop toward himself. He read the conclusion. Marcus Bennett was excluded as the biological father. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Marcus heard the wall clock. One click. Another. Another. Danielle's wedding ring tapped against the laptop as her hand dropped beside it. 0, she whispered. Marcus kept his eyes on the report. Excluded. Danielle looked at Kayla. Kayla's face had gone pale beneath the warm kitchen light. You said you were certain. Kayla stood. I can explain. You said my husband got you pregnant. Danielle rose so quickly her chair legs scraped against the hardwood. I threw him out. I know. I changed the locks. Danielle, I told our family. Danielle picked up her phone with shaking fingers. I told people he betrayed me with my own sister. Marcus remained seated. He didn't interrupt. He didn't need to. The page on the laptop was doing everything his words had failed to do. Danielle turned the screen toward Kayla. Why? Kayla covered her mouth. I couldn't tell you who it really was. You could have told me it wasn't Marcus. I panicked. So you chose him? Danielle pointed toward Marcus. You watched me throw him out and chose him. Kayla's shoulders folded inward. The real father is married. You already told us that. Danielle stepped closer. Who? Kayla shook her head. Danielle picked up the printed photograph from Denver Week, the empty bed, Marcus's message beneath it, and placed it beside the DNA report. Look at what you did. Kayla's eyes filled. He said if anyone found out, everything would be over. His marriage, his career. He was helping me with money, and he said that would stop too. Marcus finally stood. So I was safer. Kayla looked at him. What? You needed a father who could take the accusation without exposing the real one. Kayla's silence answered before her mouth did. Danielle stepped backward as if the space between them had suddenly changed temperature. Say his name. Kayla squeezed her eyes shut. Daniel Cross. Danielle stopped breathing for a beat. Marcus recognized the name only from family gatherings. Danielle and Kayla's mother's longtime financial advisor, a married man nearly 20 years older than Kayla. But Marcus didn't chase the name. It no longer mattered to the question that had destroyed his home. Danielle looked from her sister to the report. Then she unlocked her phone. What are you doing? Kayla asked. Danielle opened the family group chat. What I should have done before I repeated an accusation without proof. She photographed the laboratory conclusion and attached it. Marcus watched her thumb hover above send. Danielle looked at him once. Then she pressed it. The message disappeared into the screen with a soft electronic swoosh. For days Marcus had been the man everyone expected to explain himself. Now the DNA result sat in every phone Danielle had once used to condemn him, and the burden of explanation had moved to the other side of the table.